Okay, Pleasant Hills Montessori. We're going to do your website review now and get this on the right screen. There we go. So hope you're having a great day. Let's plug in your. So lejmontessori.com is your site uh, for Pleasant Hill Montessori. So I guess you're an LEJ Montessori, so you're doing an SEO thing there. Um, hmm. That's I, Well, that's a whole other topic. Maybe I'll come back to that. I'm not sure if that is really the best idea for you. Um, but I can't say for sure until I would do a little bit of research on what you need SEO wise. So let's just see how we do here on the website grader. Okay, 84 out of 100, so you're doing pretty well. Um, Performance is 19 out of 30. Mobile's 30 out of 30. For SEO, you got 25 out of 30. And security 10 out of 10. So let's jump down to performance. So your page is making a lot of requests. That's the biggest issue. What I think if you've seen any of my other website reviews, I think I've mentioned this previously, but I'll just address it here as well. What are requests? That means that the website, when the page is called, when the page opens, it makes calls to the server. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it would do that. 104 of them for a single school to make 104 calls. That is a lot, I would say. This isn't a big issue, by the way. This is kind of a minor issue. So, this isn't something I would, go spend money fixing or anything like that. Your site is perfectly fine. But just, if you really, really wanted to, you know, get 30 out of 30, then you would have to, you'd need somebody you'd need somebody that's not just a web designer, probably a web developer to take a look at all the things. You probably have a WordPress site that has a bunch of plugins that are doing things, and those things are calling to the server. So something that happens when people don't realize, like when they put a WordPress site together, and there's all these plugins that make the site do all these cool things. They bring all this functionality to your site, usually a lot more functionality than a school website actually needs, and then you end up kind of having a slower page because you have all these server calls happening. So um, something to keep in mind. um, 30 out of 30 on responsive, so that's good. That's really, really critical. That's probably the most important thing, I would say, for your website, is make sure that it is mobile responsive. So what does that mean? That means that the design of the site responds to the size of the display. So whether you're looking at it on a regular laptop or monitor, or a tablet or a phone, you want to make sure that the design responds to the size. The fonts will change, things will start stacking vertically as opposed to just squishing down. So it looks like you've got that going on. And if you notice here, this is great, by the way. If you look at this snapshot of the mobile design, you have a really nice call to action right there on the screen. So that's great. So when 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 you're designing your site and you want to make sure that it is not just mobile responsive, but like when people initially are directed to your site, you want your main call to action to be uh, like front and center. And this is actually this design, the mobile design here on this phone display is doing a great job of that. So you've got a nice white space at the bottom with a big purple book a tour button. So that's awesome. So I would say great job on that. So I'm actually talking about the content of your design. But so beyond it being just simply mobile responsive, this is wonderful. So I love to see this. So you you know um, so good job on you guys. 25 out of 30 on SEO. So SEO, of course, means search engine optimization. What is that talking about? So what that means is that um, if you have a search engine strategy, a search engine optimization strategy, meaning you have identified what keywords your ideal prospective parents are using and searching for when they're going on to Google or other search engines to try to find schools like yours. um, then you would place those keywords in a number of different places. One of them is the headings, and that means like the heading that the actual user will see if they click on that page. So Google is looking to see if you have a consistent keyword strategy in all the different places that are the most important. So page titles is one. Headings is usually uh, the, the the second place you want to make sure it's there. The page titles and the headings are actually what people see, whereas the meta description and the sitemap, that's really what Google is looking for. That's meta, that's beneath the surface, so to speak. That's what Google. So optimizing a web page for search engines, when you're doing that, you're both you're placing those strategic keywords in places where people will see them and places where Google will see them. Google actually sees all of them, and Google is looking to see that you have a consistent keyword strategy in all the right places. So one of those key places is heading. So that's not happening here. I would say uh, before you start, let's say, investing in having somebody go through your site and updating your headings to make sure it's consistent, I would first want to determine if it even matters, because search engine optimization is not something that actually applies to every school, meaning it's not relevant for every school. It's only relevant, uh, you would only know it's relevant if you had an expert do an audit. Um, and the first step in doing that is, making sure that they understand your ideal prospective parent and the kind of searches that they perform. And then you want to see if there's if there's a large enough volume of searches happening for those keywords. And you generally want to see at least 1,000 or more searches a month happening for those keywords. And what I'll tell you is most of the time we find that there just isn't enough search volume for anything that's strategically relevant for the school. And that's the first thing you want to determine. So I've said this over and over, and I'll say it again. If anybody comes to you saying, "Hey, we do SEO, you need to do SEO," if they tell you before doing research that you need SEO and you need to invest in that, just that's your cue to just stop talking to that person, because they're just trying to make a sale. They're not trying to sell you something that is necessarily good for you. If alternatively, what they're trying to do is sell you the service of the research and the audit to find out if SEO is a relevant strategy for you, then you're talking to a real professional. So that's the issue with SEO people. There's a lot of them out there. Some of them are great. A lot of them are snake oil salesmen, and they'll just sell you, and you'll spend thousands of dollars and get nowhere. So beware, buyer beware. SEO people can be amazing, but they can also be total snakes. So just you got to know, and I would say the first thing to check in is if they are telling you for sure without them performing an audit and doing the necessary research that you need to do SEO. That's your indication that you're talking to somebody that's just trying to make a sale as opposed to provide a service that's actually relevant to you. Okay, now 10 out of 10 on security. That's good. So that means you've got a secure socket layer, which means all the information that might be collected on your site, if it's sent through the cloud, it will be encrypted. So that's good. And you probably don't have that happening on your site. It's unlikely that you do, but if you have forms on your site, that's something that's a scenario where you're transmitting information that's being collected on the site. If you have like a digital form that's being filled out, like an inquiry form or something, so that's a scenario. Or if you're taking payments for something, you need to have an SSL certificate, of course. But so that's the security reason for it. But also there's a performance reason for it, meaning Google likes to reward sites that have SSL certificates. They will. That's one of the things they look for. That will actually increase. They will give you a better ranking if they're seeing that, because they want to control the quality of of the websites that they serve to to the people searching. So so you got that. So that's wonderful. Okay. So now let's actually take a look at your site. So first impressions. Here we go. Okay, so first impressions on your site. Okay, so like I said about the mobile design, so so what I like about your site right off the bat is you have a nice, big, clear, simple call to action, which is a distinct color. It's purple, it's not blue. It's not the blue that's in your logo, so it's not being, so what happens is it pulls the eyes, it pulls the attention right towards that link. And if I click on that, I can see it's a Calendly link, which is another great thing to do. So if I click on that, that takes me to a Calendly, which is a great tool for doing tours. So that's good. And so good on you guys. And as far as the design choices, the color choices, I'm not very opinionated about this. I what I like about your site particularly is that it's very simple, very clear, a lot of space, a lot of white space, which is good. It makes all the text really clear and easy to see. You're not it's not The text isn't overlaid some busy background picture, which makes it hard to read. So that's wonderful, because good web design is not about it's not about the artistic element of it, meaning it has to be functional. It has to communicate. You want it to look nice, but you're not trying to win an art award, right? You're not trying to get your website to be hanging on a wall in a gallery. It's there to present yourself in a professional way, to give that to give your prospective parents a sense of trust, and so that they want to know that you're professional, you're organized, you're clear and concise. That is how you build the trust with a prospective parent, to get them to come in for a tour, right? um, it's not so much about branding doesn't really matter. I mean, uh, in this regard, meaning your customers make the decision to uh, enroll their children in your school, not because of how your website looks, not because of how your logo looks, not because of what your name is. They make that decision by standing inside your school, having a full body emotional experience, seeing the magic that's going on, observing amazing things, seeing children working together, and like the all the amazing stuff that goes on with a Montessori school or any great school. Um, that is how your customers make their buying decision. That's where they're sold. So, how do you get them to that place? Well, you have to build trust with people. Marketing is a you one in one way you can define marketing is simply that it's a process of building trust, and there's stages that people have to go through until they're at the point where they trust you enough to hand you their children, and oftentimes an average of about $10,000 a year. Um, I wish my school was that low, but my school is on the upper. The school that my kids go to is skews that number up, whereas many of the schools we work with are well below $10,000. And what I would say is, well, that's a whole other discussion. But so now here's my opinion on how to use your homepage. You're doing very well in comparison to many of the homepages I see. Something that I keep on telling to people is, this navigation here, where is just not nearly as important in regards to the purpose of your website. The purpose of your website, the main purpose of your website, is to get prospective parents to book a tour and show up for a tour. You're doing a really good job of that right here. So, one thing that, when I loaded this page, one thing that happened was I didn't see that call to action first, right? So what I would do if I was you is I would actually remove this whole navigation to altogether. Um, it's not a bad idea to have all this stuff, but I would just keep the navigation in the footer, because I firmly believe that your homepage really should be more like what is a landing page rather than like a standard website. It's not important for people to see your calendar. It's not right. And I'm so what I'm saying is your website for you and your school. Um, the purpose of it is to get prospective parents to book a tour. It's not there to teach people what Montessori is. Um, it's not there to talk about field trips. It's not there to, give parents too much information, right? What you want to do is you want to think of your website as is that it has one solitary goal, and that is to get the right kind of parents, the parents that you want to enroll. You want to get it needs to get those people into the tour. Okay. So how do you do that? You can't give no information. So I'm not suggesting you should just get rid of all the words or anything or not talk about your programming, but you should be very careful to give only the right amount of information, enough information that they're interested to learn more. Don't give them the whole thing. Don't give them your pricing. Don't give them a deep, deep explanation of all your programming. That is meant to be explained when they're standing in your school and they're face to face with you. What you want to do is give them just the initial introductions to some of your programming, and but all of that information should be below the call to action. So I would get rid of this navigation, and I would make it so that this is what I see. So this is what we're looking at right here. If I was you, this would be the top of the site it would look like this. When the page loaded, there would be nothing above this big header image. Okay, so take that for what it's worth. That's what I would do. That's what the landing pages look like when we run campaigns for our clients. The landing pages just we don't have a navigation at the top with links to go everywhere. We have one singular call to action, and this is what it looks like, and it's book a tour. So what you want is you want to make it you want it's just about prioritizing the information on the page for the most important goal of that page. So it's okay to have all that other navigation. I would just stick it down here at the bottom. So if people really wanted to search around the site and they didn't want to just figure out how to book a tour, then and it was important to them, then I would actually have that navigation down here on the bottom so they can click on what is Montessori and things like that. But again, I wouldn't give too much information. I would only give enough information to get them interested to learn more. And to learn more, that what they have to do is click this link to book a tour, right? So that's always the thing. You have to be kind of obsessive about understanding, where these parents are at in the funnel, in the life cycle of being a parent at your school, right? Now, a lot of schools, what they do is they're using their website with multiple priorities. Like they're not prioritizing it correctly. So they have pages on their website that are dedicated to information that is just needed for teachers, or information that's just needed for enrolled parents. And all that stuff is totally perfectly fine to have on your website, but it should not be visible to your prospective parents. So there's ways of having websites share info like with a login, so that your enrolled parents or your staff see different things than what a prospective parent would see. So that's something that you want to. That's ideal. So you want to have a login section where we call it a parent portal or whatever. It doesn't have to be a portal, but it could just be that these pages are only seen by parents that log in, or these pages of the website are only seen by staff that log in. So that's with the right software and system, that's really easy to accomplish, and it just makes sure that you're not sacrificing the main purpose of your website, which is to get the prospective parents that find your website, whether it's by search engine or whether it's by an ad that leads people to your website. You want it to be a landing page. You want your whatever page you direct somebody to from an ad or from organic searches. You want to make sure that it's optimized to produce the largest amount of inquiries possible. And so if we're taking a look at this, that if this just as a way to juxtapose it, if I load the page and this is what I see, as opposed to I load the page and this is what I see, right? Well, it's a lot. it's a lot easier. So if we were split testing that, like we were sending, we had ads running, and half of them would see this navigation first up at the top, or half of the traffic that we generated from the ad would land on this page and see this, and there would be no navigation at the top. Then um, my assumption is, because I've tested this thousands of times, you would get more tour bookings because that button would just be more obvious. They wouldn't have to scroll for it. They wouldn't. It would just be like painfully clear what you want them to do. You want them to book a tour, and so if you get more people seeing that right off the bat, you're just going to have more people booking a tour. Like it's kind of obvious, right? What you don't want, I mean, when you have a prospective parent that finds your website, do you really want them to poke around and learn about field trips or learn about scholarships? No, you don't want them to do that. You want them to book a tour. That's what you want them to do, because then you're meeting them face to face, you're answering your questions, you're educating them much better, and they're falling in love with the school. That's what you want. You want them to book a tour. So I would say get rid of all these things that get in the way of your main goal. That's my suggestion. So we'll leave it there. But I like, I think you're off to a really good start with your site. And so again, just to recap, I would take this navigation and I would stick it on the bottom in the footer section of the page so that it's not getting in the way of the main focus of this web page, which is to get somebody to book a tour.